All right, our first pay-per-view of the year, UFC 270, is January, what is it, January 22? Yeah, January 22nd. Headlined by Francis Ngannou versus Ciryl Gane. Heavyweight title fight, the unification of Cyryl's interim, Francis's actual. This is the best matchup there can be right now in this division, frankly. I mean, Ciryl is, what is he now? 7-0, 8-0, or whatever he is in the UFC.
10 in the UFC, yeah.
UFC, yeah. I think 7-0 in the UFC, 10-0 overall. Obviously, the big story they keep hammering is that both of these guys used to train at the same gym in Paris. And now, obviously, Francis is in Vegas. Ciryl is still in France. And then the whole thing with the trainer, Francis's prior trainer, Cyryl's current trainer. Honestly, I think they're just trying to build up a bunch of hoopla. None of it really seems all that critical to me. I'm just really more interested on the match. I don't care about the rest of the stuff outside. It's not that interesting with storyline, in my opinion. I guess the question here would be, in the event Francis wins, what's going to happen? Is he going to stay in the UFC? He had an interview the other day with Megan O'Leary where he said, "There's no way I'm staying with how my contract currently is. Like I have to be making more than $500,000 or whatever that he's currently making, and he wants a clause where he can go box." Him and Tyson Fury have been going back and forth about boxing each other, so he wants that added. I don't know. I personally don't see, in my opinion, if he wins. I don't know what if he gets a deal, what it looks like. I think he's prepared to walk away, and I also feel like the UFC is prepared to let him walk. So it wouldn't be that surprising to me, win or lose, if this is the last time we see Francis in the UFC, at least for now. Maybe later down the line we see him again. I don't know, but I wouldn't be entirely surprised if we don't see him after this fight, regardless of outcome.
I'm inclined to agree with you. I mean, especially considering everything we discussed in that video. But just to recap real quick, in retrospect, it makes sense why they propelled Gane so quickly up the rankings, like why they wanted him to get that interim championship belt. In the event that Ngannou vacated, or in the event that he wins or loses and decides, okay, that was my last fight, I'm out, see ya. You need somebody to fill that slot. And at this point, who else but Gane? I would have loved to have seen Derek Lewis do it, but I don't think that's in the cards. So, yeah, man. I mean, look, on a personal note, if I had the opportunity to go to a different sport, let's say go to boxing and make 2 times, 3 times, 5 times, who knows? I don't know what the number would be, but for sure in the millions. Right? Yeah. Easily. Yeah, boxing, for whatever bizarre reason, brings in.
It's just the big ones. It's just the big fights. They always skew it where they're like, oh, look at how much they're making. I'm like, it's literally that one fight, though.
Yeah.
That one fight on the card is where those guys make that big dollar. And then the rest of the guys aren't really doing anything.
Yeah, I mean, and if you're chasing.
That is what Francis would be. He would be that one fight.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and if that's what he's chasing a payday, man, then, good for you. Go for it, man. You already got the belt. There's nothing left to prove in the UFC. You've done it. You proved it. Go make your money, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any sour thoughts if he were to do that. I mean, dude, again, who wouldn't want to pick that much with opportunity to? And again, he's not even saying like I want to leave the UFC. He's saying I'm content to stay with the UFC. He obviously wants more money, which I don't think is an unreasonable request given what he's shown he can do. I would imagine probably the biggest hiccup is that boxing clause, maybe because. Unless he's asking for like an astronomical bump in pay, like $10 million a fight or something, because they weren't even willing to pay John Jones that. So I don't know if they're willing to pay Francis that. And I don't know. I haven't even seen any rumors of what dollar figure he's asking for his fights in the UFC. But I also don't know how willing Dana is going to be to loan him out to boxing as he so chooses.
So
now, yeah, they did it with Conor.
That's what I was going to ask you. Like outside of Conor,
that's a completely different realm.
Yeah, but outside of Conor, has anybody else been given that kind of opportunity, or
not that I'm aware of? And if there were, not to the near magnitude.
And you can't even compare that because that's Conor McGregor. So
exactly, and not just Conor McGregor, but also Floyd Mayweather.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you have 2 of the biggest draws in both of the sports. Now, I think present day, you could, I guess, look, I'm not that well versed in boxing. I'm not going to pretend that I am. I think present day Tyson is for sure one of the bigger name draws. I'm not going to include Floyd just because he's like half-ass kind of doing it. Like he's not professionally fighting. He's just fighting to make more money. But it's not like actually sanctioned, I think, in regards to his record possibly being at risk. It's just more money that he's making. So I think in terms of actual boxers, I would imagine Tyson Fury is probably one of the bigger name draws. But I wouldn't really see that matchup even sniffing nearly anything that McGregor and Mayweather did. So I think maybe Dana and the UFC are doing like a risk assessment and seeing if we loan him out, because obviously they would get a cut. There's no way he's loaning him out for free. Maybe the risk isn't worth it for him. I don't know. I don't know what the holdup is. Maybe a combination of both the base pay that Francis is wanting on the UFC side, in addition to the boxing side, is maybe the problem. I have no clue.
Maybe Dana's taking a hardline stance. We don't negotiate with fighters. You know what I mean? Like he's like, oh, you're gonna try to strong arm me, huh?
Leverage right now. Like I know Francis is liked amongst MMA fans, and I don't dislike him by any means. When he's fighting, like your eyes are glued to the TV. You can't even sneeze. You can't be eating. You can't be talking to anyone because within half a second, someone might be dead.
Yep.
But at the same time, if I never, because you have to also factor he's been inactive, right? And not necessarily of his choice, but he's been fighting like once a year the last couple of years-ish, kind of like that. He fought once in 2021. He fought once in 2020, if I'm not mistaken. We're not even seeing him that often. And the heavyweight division is still chugging along. The UFC is still chugging along. Yeah, look at that. 2021 once, 2020 once. And then he had two times in 2018. Sorry, 2019, he fought twice. Because, again, the UFC, I think, looks at it as the business as a whole will continue to grow with or without Francis. So if he's wanting 5 million, whatever he's wanting, and they're not feeling that he warrants that, Francis doesn't have the leverage because the UFC, again, we talked about, I forgot which video we were talking about it. The UFC is going to grow without him anyway. It doesn't matter. He's not like a Conor to be like, crap, okay, fine, we'll bend the knee. Because we're seeing this happening now, right? I mean, we're seeing it in every industry where people are coming out saying, hey, give me more money. If you don't have the leverage, why the hell would they give you the money? If they don't need you and they can go without you, you're replaceable. Why would they say? We saw the same thing with Henry Cejudo. He was bitching that Dana didn't give him the fight against Volkanovski at 145. It's like, dude, where the hell? You've been gone for like 2 years. You fought at 125. You fought at 135. You've never fought at 145 before. He has. I don't remember. What leverage do you have? And also, you retired. You retired right after your last fight. And then in the post-fight press conference, you're saying, oh, if they pay me more, I'll come back and fight. Like, you have zero ground to stand on. And then that's what I don't get when people, these random freaking warriors online that are pro MMA pay, pro fighter pay, bitching about Dana. It's like, dude, it's a business in the end. It makes no business sense to be throwing money at Henry Cejudo or Francis when I'm still making money. Now, whether that's I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but it seems like just common sense to me. It's like, okay, if I'm still making this, if I can make the same pace of money that I'm making with or without you, and you're asking me for way more, okay, good luck. Best of luck. You go to boxing, make your money there.
Yeah.
And maybe we can see each other later down the line. Like, I don't think it's that big a deal. Regardless, kind of got off course there. But so to get back onto this event, very fascinating matchup just stylistically, right? Because obviously Francis has unmatched the greatest power in the sport. But at the same time, you look at Ciryl, this guy's like twinkle toes on his feet for a heavyweight. Dude, he's very agile, very spry. I forgot who he was fighting. The commentator was saying it's almost like I think Bisping was saying he's like he almost moves like a welterweight. The guy's like what? He fights around
247 is what's written there.
Oh. But dude, he's so nimble on his toes. He throws flying knees and it's crisp. It's not like Derek Lewis flying knees where it's like clumsy, looking kind of goofy. If Ciryl wins, it is not a surprise to me at all.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me either. I don't know if I would. Man, I don't know. I think I'm just biased against Ciryl. I don't like the way that they just moved him up that fast. But 10-0. But then again, on the flip side of that, look at Giga. He was 8-0. He just got handed. You know what I mean? So, A, you don't know what's going to happen. B, just because you're undefeated like that, I don't think that means that you immediately deserve a title shot.
Yeah, but he fought 7 times, and also like it's almost actually parallel situation to Giga. Giga was 7-0 entering Cater, and same with Ciryl. He's 7-0 in the UFC entering Francis. But I would say the difference is the quality in the competition, though, versus in Giga versus Ciryl. Look at Ciryl. He just beat Derek Lewis. He beat Volkov. He beat Biggie Boy. He beat JTS. Granted, an older JTS, but still, he beat Tanner Bozer, who's by no means like those upper echelon heavyweights, but Tanner Bozer is solid as well. So he's beat more quality of opponents versus I would say like the Giga situation, for example. So I don't think it's necessarily them quickly put like it's been quick just because he's been fighting so frequently. Look at this. First debut was in 2019 and towards the latter half of 2019, and he still fit in 3 fights. He fought once in 2020. I think that maybe was like COVID related stuff. He was in France. I think there was some travel issues, and then 3 times in 21. I don't really have an issue with him being where he is now because looking at the immediate people around him, I think he's the most deserving and frankly the most challenge that can present Francis with the current makeup of the division. I think you can maybe make a case, Stipe should have had a rematch, and that's just based on the legacy merit, because Stipe being considered one of the greatest heavyweights, the amount of victories he's had, the amount of defenses he has had. I understand that argument. I wouldn't have been like completely opposed to it, but I don't think this was like a completely unreasonable place to be where we are right now with these two facing off.
Fair enough, man. Yeah.
But I think and again, kind of similar to the Giga fight situation where Giga was almost like kind of overlooking or maybe not nearly as focused on Cater as he should have been. You kind of wonder entering this fight, where is Francis's focus? Does he even care what happens in this fight? Like, does he care if he wins? Like, he's a competitor, yeah, so I'm sure he wants to win, but if he already has some plans in place for boxing, does this really matter to him? I don't know the answer to that. And I guess that's kind of why I pose it. Because if the answer to that is he's indifferent or doesn't really matter, I think that tilts the scale more in favor of Gane, because Gane is laser focused. I mean, you see it in his performances, very sharp, precise, and he doesn't take unnecessary gambles by any means. And he's a very calculated person, regardless of who he's fighting, whether they have immense power, whether they're not as nearly powerful heavyweight. His game plan is always consistent with patience. Get in, get out, get in, get out. If you get in and then you can capitalize there, you'll go on it. But he's not a rushing heavyweight. He's not one of these sloppy guys who's just swinging. You see it with Francis sometimes too, where he gets caught, where he's throwing without form. It's just that power. If he lands, you're dead. So I think for those reasons, it continues to tilt more in favor of Ciryl if Francis isn't fully focused there.
Possibly. I mean, but then you said it right there, right? If you get caught, you're dead. So
that's the thing.
And in stark contrast to Rosenstrick and Lewis, who also have that you get caught, you're dead power. Ngannou, I think, is more spry. He's definitely faster than the two of those guys. So yeah. I don't know if Ciryl is going to be able to maintain the range and maintain the maintain the dance in his favor the way he did in those fights. And I don't know. This can go either way. Basically, it can go either way. I think if it's Francis, it's going to be very quick. It's going to be decided very quickly. If it's Gane, this will probably get dragged out into like the later rounds, maybe 4 or 5. And then the question, really for me, another interesting question is Francis going to be able to, if it does get dragged out that far, how's his conditioning going to hold up?
That's the thing.
We know Cyryl's no problem. He'll go.
Yeah. Strategically, you would imagine that's the best pathway to victory for Ciryl. Now, I'm not saying like intentionally drag it out and be boring.
Yeah.
But just in terms of an actual game plan, yeah, if this fight isn't done in the first half of the fight, I would imagine that means Ciryl won. Because yes, Francis is always going to have that power, regardless of like whether he's tired or not. The power will obviously be less, but it's still a lot of power to be combating. But if we're getting towards like end of round 3 into round 4, I would imagine we're going to be seeing a much more gassed Francis versus a much more gassed Ciryl. So I do agree with you, where if Francis is going to win, I would imagine it's going to have to be early while he still has that power. Now, against Stipe, we saw that fight ended in round 2, and he looked very good in round 1. He didn't look like gas tank was compromised by any means. Yes, it was only a round, but the thing is, it wasn't just him standing up and swinging in that fight. He took Stipe to the ground. He kind of maneuvered on there. He had to take. He was defending the takedown, so it was a relatively active round. It wasn't just him throwing shots where it can be like, all right, well, he wasn't having to exert too much energy. Like he was doing other things along with just punching. And that was, I think, a much different Francis that any of us had seen to that point.
Yeah,
we're so used to him just throwing hands and killing someone, where that will always be there. This time, again, like I mentioned, when I saw him going around Stipe on the ground, I was like, holy crap. If this guy's going to start doing stuff like this, who the hell's going to beat him? Enter Ciryl. Now we'll find out. Is that going to be Ciryl or not?
For sure, dude. And not to diss Stipe, but let's be realistic here. Stipe is an older guy too. So that could contribute a little bit.
Also much smaller. Smaller. He's smaller than Ciryl too. I think he entered that fight at like 235 or something. A very lean heavyweight.
Yeah, so I mean, you do have to take that into consideration. Like, yes, Francis was able to sort of like play with him on the ground a little bit, but again, Stipe is older. He's going to be slower. This is just natural biology, guys. It happens to all of us. You're gonna be slower at that age. Gane does not have that problem, and to your point, Gane is bigger, at least 10 pounds. At weigh-in, and then come fight day, how much more equalizes their weight can actually be. So it's a consideration.
Yeah. So what do we have lines on ESPN yet on this? If not, I can quickly pull it up.
Yes. Francis is plus 130 and Ciryl is minus 155.
It's quite a bit. Initially, when this fight was announced, it was almost a pick'em. It was kind of teetering. It was going like minus 115 Francis, and then it was going to minus 115 Ciryl. So honestly, looking at these lines, it just kind of means to me nothing has changed. Obviously, like there's been no revelations in terms of injuries or anything. I think this just to me looks like bettors are looking at the whole situation with Francis in the UFC. And then also maybe the fact that Francis said in that interview with Megan O'Leary a few days ago, like, yeah, it looks like it's probably done. And they're probably thinking, hey, if this is his last fight, he might not really care. At least that's how I'm interpreting it. Because otherwise, nothing else has changed.
I mean, yeah, I don't know what else. I don't know how else you would come to an answer for this because you know what Gane can do, you know what Francis can do, and knowing that you're saying Gane's going to win. And minus 155 is not like that's kind of steep for these guys for this fight.
I would agree. Yeah,
that's kind of steep.
Talent level wise, it's very close. Again, it just seems to me that it's kind of like is this guy as invested in the sport right now or not?
I mean,
if it's just based on talent, there's no way. Like it should be where it was when it opened up because it could go either way, really.
This is a good buy, I think. I mean, if you buy Francis, you buy him plus 130. That's not bad, I think. But yeah, like you don't know. This could close up a little bit. Come fight night, it could actually close up, tighten up a little bit more. What I'd be curious about is the rounds.
Actually, I have that pulled up, and this actually doesn't really make that much sense to me. So it's set at 2.5.
I figured, yeah.
And the under is a slight favorite.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The reason I say that doesn't make sense is what they're expecting Cyryl's going to finish this fight in less than 2.5 rounds.
I'm guessing they're expecting that if it ends early, it'll be by knockout by Francis for sure. I mean, I don't think they're thinking Cyryl's going to do the KO, but I think they're thinking.
That's what I'm saying. So if the under is a slight favorite, but then, and we discussed, right, if the fight's going to end in the first half, you would imagine it's probably going to be Francis that finishes it that quickly. So if we're saying, if the lines are suggesting the under is a slight favorite, but then in terms of the money line, it's saying Francis is the underdog. You see that gap right there?
No, I do. So, well, it could be two things, right? Maybe the lines just completely diverge from each other. The money line is one thing, and then the over-under is a completely different thing, and there's two different bettors playing two different things. Or it could be that people are actually thinking Gane's going to get a KO.
That early? I don't know, man. I mean, can we pull up his profile one more time? Let's see. This is him.
It doesn't happen.
It's happened once in the UFC.
Yeah.
In his first fight. Ever since then, everything has gone over 2.5. Sorry. Against Junior Dos Santos, it was under 2.5.
Yeah. Well, and that's Junior Dos Santos, another older guy. Okay.
Yeah.
You can knock him out for sure.
So 2 of his 7 fights in the UFC have gone under 2.5. And then prior to the UFC, they were all under 2.5. But like we said in several videos, we see that before.
Maybe the bettors are just diverging. Like some people are going hard on the money line, and some people are going hard on the rounds.
I don't know, and frankly, to be honest, I don't really have a concrete play in either direction of this because looking at the money line, I'm part of the party currently that I feel like it seems like Francis's head isn't in the sport right now. So I'm more inclined to think for that reason Ciryl would win. If we had a laser focused Francis versus a laser focused Ciryl, I would probably lean towards Francis just because I have no idea if that strike lands, that the fight's done right there. Whereas I don't really have that concern as much with Ciryl, where that one strike lands, like I'm not worried that Francis is going to be done so off of a single strike. Whereas we could have like 4 rounds of domination by Ciryl, and then out of nowhere, Francis lands one. The fight could be done just as easily. I don't see that with Ciryl. But given that we don't have that focus to focus, it seems like I'm leaning towards Ciryl. But at the same time, seeing him at minus whatever it was, 155 or whatever, that I don't know how much I like that value.
Yeah, I would be sketched out right there too. Because again, it's not like he's fighting Francis Ngannou, man. Like,
yeah.
so
if I was picking something between these two, I'd be more inclined to maybe lump Francis in like a parlay. A parlay that I have like very strong anchors, like a 2-3 leg, let's say, 3 or 4 leg, let's say, but like the 3 or 2 that I have in the other ones outside of Francis, like they're surefires for me. Then maybe I would throw Francis in there. Otherwise, I wouldn't take either of these straight, to be frank. If Ciryl ends up closing a little bit closer, if he gets to like maybe like minus 135-ish, minus 130, that's probably the cap that I would be where I'd be comfortable to maybe get going a little heavier on a straight bet or throw him in on a parlay wherever.
Yeah.
But then on the round side, it's tricky because it's very close at 2.5. And I could kind of see it go either way too, because like I was saying with Francis, you don't know if he puts your lights out. It could be in the beginning. And then if Cyryl's going to win, you would imagine it's going to be later. But then at the same time, I don't know. This one, I have no idea what play is a good play. I probably would just abstain from it entirely, just because I don't, unless we see more movement. But at its current juncture, I don't know what play I would make.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with you, man. I really don't know what to do here. I'll probably abstain from both the money line and the rounds on this one. It'll be great to watch, that's for sure. But I don't know if I want to play with my sanity.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky, man. But I do hope that I'm incorrect in that it seems Francis isn't as focused. I hope he comes in laser focused and we see a phenomenal fight. Regardless of duration of the length, I just hope, I would imagine if we see a focused Francis, we might see kind of the same approach we saw in round 1 against Stipe, where he's not going full guns blazing, but when he had some moments, he utilized those moments. He combated some takedown attempts, and then he even took Stipe down at one point. Now, I don't know. Are we going to see, I don't know if we see Ciryl attempting takedowns. I mean, look at it. He barely averages 1 a fight, but we also have seen him submit people. And Ciryl is more patient. So I think if we saw a laser focused Francis, possibly the first round might kind of be not like inactive, but maybe not as guns blazing. And then maybe second round is kind of where we see it pick up, similar to how Francis did against Stipe. That's what I would maybe imagine seeing if we have a regular focused Francis. And if not, I don't know. All bets are kind of off, really. So in the end, I guess I'll say my pick to win is Ciryl, and I would take the over 2.5. But by no means is there any confidence in either of those picks.
I'm just gonna go ahead and go the complete opposite direction and say Francis under.
Yeah, I very well get that could very well be the case.
Yeah, I mean, you never know, man. So this is a tough one. It's a really tough one.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, regardless, very excited to see what happens. I do hope we see a focused Francis, because I think if we do this arguably could be one of the best heavyweight matchups. Because on paper, this is a fascinating matchup.
Can you imagine it gets to 5 rounds?
Are one thing. What's that?
Can you imagine it gets to 5 rounds of them just like swinging at each other, like Cater and Holloway but Ciryl and Ngannou 5, that'd be nuts, dude. Nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be very interested to see what they look like at that point too. We'll find out. I do hope we see the best of both guys coming forward, regardless of whether Francis knows he's going to be there any longer or not. We'll see. Any last notes on this one?
Nah, man, I'm just looking forward to it.
Yeah, let's hope we see the banger that I think this warrants to be, and we'll find out January 22nd in Anaheim, UFC 270.